Hey, hey, hey. Hello. Welcome back to ABTG. Can I get a bit of layout here? This is better. I am joined today by PJ.
Hello.
And Sahel will be joining us as soon as he can. Braxton, are you watching? He's not watching, but he left a comment. He said, "Hi guys, evening greetings. I haven't seen the movie, but I'm gonna watch the discussion anyways. I love spoilers. As you're reviewing, give me some background so I'm not lost." So yeah, I think we can do you can do a bit of a recap for the movie later on, or maybe now. Do you want to open with like a recap, kind of like a short synopsis for what the film is? Stowaway.
Well, it's about a crew of a spaceship in some point in the future. They're on a mission to Mars, and it's three crew members, two female, one male. And after they leave Earth, they find, of course, a stowaway on there. And then something happens where they find out they only have enough oxygen for three people, and they have to do this little what do they call it, EVA operation, to retrieve some oxygen so they can all survive. But things get worse and worse, and of course, it turns out that there's no way that four of them can reach Mars safely. So something needs to be done. Somebody needs to go, and that's the dilemma. Very, very interesting concept. I knew there was something familiar about this concept, and this movie is based on a YouTube short film. I think the channel is called Dust. I think it's from 2014. It's called The Stowaway, and that is in turn based on a short story called The Cold Equations, written by Tom Goldwyn. It was published in 1954, and that story is about an emergency dispatch ship headed for a frontier planet with a load of medical supplies, and then the pilot Barton discovers a stowaway, an 18-year-old girl, and the protocol is to eject her, like she can't be there because there's only enough fuel. In Stowaway, it's about air, and in the previous iterations, it's always been about fuel. And at the end of that story, the young girl jettisons herself into space so that the mission can succeed. So
Okay.
that's where this movie comes from. And by the way, I didn't know if it was a Netflix movie because in Canada it's on Amazon Prime.
It's not necessarily a Netflix film. It's one of those kind of smaller, like independent movies that gets released where it can. From what I understand, this is a very independent.
It is technically everybody's calling it a Netflix film. It only matters in the country. It only matters in the country that they're in. Like in the U.S., it is a Netflix film. Netflix doesn't go out and actually make. They usually just purchase them. And actually, this was made by Paramount, I think. And it's funny how Paramount licenses some of their films out. Like Coming to America 2 was on Amazon, and that was Paramount. So yeah, Lionsgate also license. Netflix also gets stuff from them. Like Orange Is the New Black was actually produced by Lionsgate, and Netflix
really? Okay.
So that's called a Netflix show, but technically it's not a direct Netflix show. Just like
I know there's a lot of shows like that.
This isn't a direct Netflix movie, but for a streaming movie, I think it's pretty decent. It's not. It doesn't go down that line of like, oh, this is one of your typical shitty streaming films. Like it's emotional and it has tension and suspense in it. So.
Okay, so I was gonna wait till Sahel gets here to say this, but we kind of have to open the discussion with this. The reason why I was so insistent that you guys watch this movie and that you guys come to me and we talk about it is because this is actually made by one of the first YouTubers that I ever followed on YouTube. Back in 2009, I fell in love with a guy called Ray William Johnson as a content creator. He did Equals 3. And from then on, I found other people like Daystorm, and I found a guy called Mystery Guitar Man, a.k.a. Joe Penna, the guy who directed this. And so this guy, basically Mystery Guitar Man, he's here. Good. Yay! How you doing?
It's the stowaway. I'm the stowaway. You found me.
You are the stowaway. How do I change myself? That's right.
There
That's
you
that.
go.
I
Ooh.
can restart my story. Good. I can start my story because I was only one sentence in. I was gonna say, thank you for joining us, by the way. The reason why this movie was so important for me, and the reason why I was so insistent on you guys watch it, is because it's made by a guy called Joe Pinna, aka Mystery Guitar Man, and he was one of the first YouTubers that I started following on YouTube back in like 2009. So I fell in love with people like Raymond Johnson and Daystorm and Joe Pena. So Mystery Guitar Man, he was making like very musical videos in the beginning, but that's because he was trying to show off like his editing skills. And I kind of followed his career. I was very invested in his life. Like I even saw his like wedding proposal, like when he proposed to his wife, everything. Um, and so he started making advertisements. Like he made I think it was a Coke ad or a Burger King ad or whatever it was. And then eventually he made his first full. I mean, he was making short films on YouTube, and eventually he made his first feature-length film, which was called Arctic, with Mads Mikkelsen. It came out the same year as a film called Polar with Mads Mikkelsen. They are not the same. Polar was trash. Arctic was very good. It was very well received, and this is his second feature-length film, and that's why it was important to me. And I think it's pretty cool that like we're in a position now where we have literal YouTubers that are now making these full length like feature films. I know it's independent and it like even if COVID wasn't a thing, I don't think this would have had like a massive theatrical release.
So what you're saying is, if he can do it, Sean can do it too.
Perhaps. I'm more into writing, I think, than I'm into directing. But he co-wrote this, and he wrote, or at least co-wrote Arctic, his first one. So yeah, I'm just saying it's really cool, and I'm so very proud of him to see him like work with now people that like. I mean, I don't know if you guys would consider Anna Kendrick like an A-list actor, but she's at least very very famous. So now he's up there working with the Hollywoods, and I find that pretty cool. So that's my story and my investment in this film, which means maybe my review and maybe my opinions won't be. I mean, maybe they'll be a little biased, if I'm honest. All right, I don't know what you guys think of it. So PJ's already
I'm
given us a
I'm
bit of a
just glad you
recap.
invited me on so that when we start our Picard discussions, I can use your little speech as a justification for why my opinions are biased when I'm talking about Picard. So I'm living the rest of this is icing for me. Now I'm going to hold it against you. So thank you.
Hot damn. Okay, well we'll start with you. We've already got the recap. You've got my backstory as to like the director. So tell me, what are your thoughts? What did you think of the film?
Well, I was interested in it because I hadn't heard anything about it except I was interested because you
I
brought
won't
it up.
stab you if you didn't like it. By the way, I
No,
won't. I
I
won't.
actually I wouldn't say I loved it, but I definitely liked it a lot. I was surprised because I thought watching it, I was a little skeptical when I started watching it because I was like, "Where is this going? Is it going to be a horror story?" That would have been like me coming on here and being like, "I hate this movie," but it actually defied a lot of expectations. And then I started doing some research into it because I was curious, and I was really impressed with how it links up with like this like really old science fiction kind of argument or discussion that's been going on about like what do you do with the stowaway because things in spaceships are very like planned, right? Like so everything about this like was very grounded, and I would call this a hard science fiction film in a way because it's very grounded, and it proposes like a very interesting idea, and it also touches on this like other thought experiment, which I abhor this thought experiment because to do it to someone is to traumatize them. But the thing about like where you present someone with like a railroad and a switch, and on one end is one person, on one track is one person, and on the other track is 10 people. So you have to decide to switch the railroad, the train to hit the one person to save the 10 people. So I loved all those things about it. So I was very impressed with the movie, and I liked it a lot.
Just a
Okay.
little factoid. The story, this story of like a spaceship and somebody having to go because they're limited, it's limited air, limited fuel or whatever. This goes all the way back to 1890. in Robert Cromie's story, A Plunge into Space, having a very similar plot to the Cold Equations, which is about somebody having to be jettisoned because they don't have enough fuel to sustain more than the allotted people. So yeah, it's when I watched it, I didn't know what it was about. I just knew it was Spaceship Stowaway. That's it, and the discovery of like what the story was and the fact that it's turning into this like really tense kind of moral drama, I guess. And there is some climate, the whole end part of the movie where they're climbing they're doing the spacewalk is actually suspenseful and intense, and you're kind of nail biting. And movies don't really do that effectively as much anymore. Create real tension, and it feels like you're really in space.
Yeah, that's
it really does
it
feel
does
like
feel
you're
like
out
you're in
there.
space, yeah.
That's what I love about it, and the artificial gravity, the concept of how that works, and the spinning makes sense. Like I'm sure Neil deGrasse Tyson can come in and pick it apart like crazy, but as a layman, I'm watching it. I'm like, this feels very realistic.
I'd like to add the same way. By the way, you said that Anna Kendrick's like a huge actor. To me, the same way kind of you felt about Joe Pena is how I feel about Toni Collette. I love her. I've followed her career, and I've ever since I saw her in Muriel's Wedding, which if you haven't seen, by the way, you should definitely see.
That sounds like a movie that wife would enjoy.
This is the first movie where you hear her natural accent. Where I've heard her natural accent. I've never
heard
her.
Right?
Yeah, I've never heard her. I've never heard her in a movie use her real accent. I'm sure she has, but in other movies. But she's one of the best.
She's great. Yeah,
she's one of the best. There's a movie called Heredity. She gives a performance that is haunting. It really like sticks in your craw or brain. I should say.
like that sticks in your craw.
I'm going to I don't know. I'm gonna deliver a bit of a plot twist here. I feel like I'm the one that enjoyed the movie the least. I think it was a very adequate film. In like, I just don't. It didn't.
What kind of trap is this? Like, what are you trying to do here? You're like, I love this guy. I love these. Whatever.
I love Joe Pena.
And then
no,
I'm just kidding.
I think he's amazing.
That's
I wouldn't mind seeing more movies directed by this guy. Actually.
Yeah, he's really
go
good.
watch Arctic. You guys would love Arctic. It's just that I found that, and this is maybe because I just watched the show, like the Netflix show. What was that called? I'd have to go and I don't even. It was Away, not Stowaway, but Away. And I was not surprised, or I found it kind of maybe bland, story wise. And I do agree that the drama was kind of well handled and that the suspense was well handled, but it was just like, I get it. I get the point of this thing where it's always like every time we try to find a solution, it's not going to work. And ultimately, I kind of saw the sacrifice, I guess, coming. So that's my kind of, I suppose, like the story wasn't as well executed as it could have been, I think. But everything else, like on a technical level, I thought it was absolutely amazing. Like I think everyone's performances were great. I was blown away by like the VFX or like the actual feel that you have like when you're in space. I thought that the set designs were great. I thought that the way that they communicated with Earth was intelligent, so that you didn't have to have like an off-screen voice or whatever. It was just like they're just listening and then they relay it back. I thought that was clever. So yeah, I'm the one that liked it the least, I feel.
Well, we'll find out, I guess, when we go to the ratings. But I'm surprised I'm surprised and also not surprised because the movie is paced slow. Like it's, like there's like I feel like there's an intentional lingering and things like that. And so there were times in the film where I definitely felt like my attention could have been distracted a little bit, or perhaps, or whatever. So yeah, I could totally see that. But I did like the clever, again, I was expecting this like horror movie because lately it's been that like a little virus or, a space virus or whatever. And so to me, it was impressive at how just like that's the thing that I think PJ was talking about, tension or something. Like the film, you're like no, this is gonna happen, but something totally different happens. And I guess we can give spoilers, but
yeah.
Anna Kendrick's character, what was her name again? What was her name?
Let me look it up.
Zoe.
So yeah,
That's right.
So Zoe's sacrifice I did not see coming, and it was like
Oh,
I really didn't. I thought that it was I thought it was gonna be Michael. I think his name was Michael, right? Like the stowaway or whatever, right? But that's what impressed me, is that it made sense. The whole point is like they're trying to, because she was so adamant about trying everything to save Michael, it would be also wrong to throw him out into space. He has no training. Like he's not capable of going and fetching the oxygen or whatever, right? So it was always going to have to be one of them. The captain's injured. Um, Biologist guy who was slightly murderous uh, was exhausted. Like they just had
David.
everything. Like they had everything lined up so that you kind of were like, wow, this is like the most logical choice. And it's like, to me, it was very impressive because a lot of movies make it very emotional and very personal. And while this movie conveyed a lot of emotion, I'm not saying that there isn't that in it. They were all believable as scientists because the way that they handled the problem,
I agree
like
with
how
that.
they kept the compassion go. I just think this is a very quintessential, unique film. So I do think it's worth seeing.
It wasn't.
I felt the way that the
intense
characters react.
melodrama, right? Like they didn't push it too. Like all of the drama felt very real and very grounded.
Yes. No, none of the characters feel like written characters. Like when you see Tony Collette, like on the phone, just trying to figure out like some other solution. Like, go through it again. Like she's desperate to say, because these people are human and they have compassion for another human being. They
Just
know
murder space someone, right?
they know
We're
the
not all belters.
they know the devastating circumstances and everything's going wrong, of course. But you also get that dilemma with the plant guy. What's his name? I gotta look it up.
David. It's
David.
David Kim.
You get this situation with David where he doesn't want to wait the 10 weeks or something. He's like, he goes to the guy with
Yeah, it was
way for
10
him
days.
to kill himself. And then there's a very kind of like it's a very logical reaction to where Anna Kendrick, she freaks out, but at the same time she understands. It's like these characters have
She's kind of relieved, I feel.
These characters have disagreements, and their dialogue feels very real, and their reactions to each other feel logical. Like nothing feels like it's put in there for the plot's sake, except for the harshness and the unforgiving nature of space, and the fact that, if it wasn't for that goddamn solar storm, everything would have been probably fine.
Would have been fine.
But the other thing, one more thing about the movie is like when you go into it, you don't know what it's going to cover. You don't know like where it's going to end, or like you going to see when they get to Mars? Are you going to see any, like, how much time will pass in the story? And I like the fact that it's relatively tight. Like, yes, time passes, but in the way they deal with the circumstance, like weeks pass, but it's all edited together in a way where you completely understand, and it's very clear the passage of time, especially with the plants and stuff. You get little visual indications of time passing. But yeah, I think it was a really good movie.
Yeah.
I don't know what's your problem, Sean.
Yeah, also I have to say that like the only things that, like, if I had to ding the movie was like the only the only thing I found improbable was, or very hard to believe, was I how did he get stuck and sealed in without someone noticing? Because someone would have
They
had
kind
to
of gloss over that, but
yeah,
I
someone
guess
would have
it's
had
like,
to have closed that panel, and you're telling me, unless it was a robot, but even a robot, wouldn't it detect like a human being or some
feel like-
anomaly, like
I feel like they have roll calls too. Like everyone that's working in the ship, kind of like
oh yeah,
make
there's
sure
like
they're out.
yeah, so that was, I think I'd be curious to see what Neil deGrasse does say about this, because he's very familiar with the space program. It just
like,
seems
that would
very
never happen.
improbable for that to happen. So I was actually waiting for, and this part I was delighted about. Maybe it was intentional, because I was waiting for a motive from Michael. Like maybe Michael put himself in there.
Spy.
Like not a spy, but just he wanted, because he talks at one point to his sister on the phone about like, well, this could like change things for us, and obviously like now his sister's all set, like, while he's away, they're taking care of all the expenses and stuff like that. So I was like trying to figure out what the motive was. Oh, and he also had a program that he was preparing to submit for next year. But then when I thought about it and said, when I cleared my my suspicious mind, I was like,
Thought he was a
well,
pirate.
yeah, I thought he was a pirate. When I cleared my suspicious mind and I finally just kind of like submitted to the idea that like, okay, just accept that like it was the 1 in a million chance where somehow this character got stuck in this panel and no one noticed, and that's just what happened. So
I didn't doubt him for a second. I think the freak out that he had in the beginning, that sold me. Like that freak out sold me. I was like, this dude, he doesn't know what the fuck's going on. Like he's on this ship, he wasn't supposed to be here. But and I forgive the movie for like not explaining or not going into detail on that, because you'd have to make like a whole prelude short movie just explaining how the hell that kind of thing is possible. So
it would have to be a convoluted Kevin McAllister doesn't get on the plane, Home Alone situation where it's like several different things have to happen just right for.
Yeah, like
I made my parents disappear.
It's true.
My family.
That part where they're counting the kids and some like neighbor just happens to show up at that exact moment, so they think they're counting Kevin. So like it could be something with the weight, because I know they do double checks and there's like triple
count faces. People don't count heads.
That is, I agree. That is the one thing about that movie that where it's like, yeah, if you really think about it, you kind of think too much. Like you would, and I'm glad they kind of didn't show any kind of flashback of it, because it probably would have been weird.
It would have been.
You know what?
He got knocked out and then trapped in the thing. It's like, okay, how does that go unnoticed? Sure, I'll forget about it.
But as an omission, or as an improbability, it works. I thought for me, it worked towards the film, creating an additional like me thinking about it made me suspicious of Michael. It brought in an additional layer.
You were scared he was going to be like a murderer. And
I was totally expecting him to go psycho on everyone and kill everyone. Like in
you're
every
used to those cheesy
movie.
90s movies, 90s thriller movies.
No, it's because you saw Life recently, didn't you?
Yeah, and I hate that. Like I hate all these. I hate space movies that like. I mean, I love them too. At the same, I mean, I love getting scared, but then afterwards, I'll never watch that movie again. This movie, I actually feel like revisiting, and I would recommend it as well, because I think it's a really interesting film.
To the point I was talking about earlier, where I enjoyed the fact that we never heard like communications from Earth, that like it was just we're watching the captain kind of listen in. I think that what you guys said as well, like they never cut back to Earth, they never cut to Mars or anything. Like I think that works in the film's favor. It really gives you that kind of claustrophobic, bottled up.
I was just gonna say that claustrophobic. That's how it feels. A
like
person who is actually claustrophobic would probably not be able to watch a movie like this, or similar movies like Gravity and stuff like that. But that
makes it even better, because you really feel like you're one of, like you almost feel like the fifth kind of passenger, I guess, like in this thing. And I don't know. I found that very, very good, the way that was handled, and the pacing also. I know I've seen comments online saying this thing is like it's too slowly paced and it's boring and what have you. That's part of it. That's part of the fact, like, these people are sitting in this capsule just waiting, right? So in the beginning, they're just waiting to get to Mars, and then very soon they're, like, waiting to die or waiting to try and resolve this. And so it would be long. There would be long passages of just you sitting there looking out the window trying to see, like, a star or whatever.
Well, that's the thing. The whole movie is basically conversations in rooms. And then it gets to, like, a special effects laden kind of climactic kind of I don't know if it's not so much tension and suspense. It's just like I'm watching it. I know that for some reason, even though, and it doesn't happen at first, I know the characters aren't going to die. I know something wrong is going to happen. I can kind of predict as I'm watching that final part of the movie, like, yeah, this is not going to be so easy. And then as soon as Tony Collette's like, oh, beep, beep, the alarm goes off. Oh, it's solar. I'm like, of course. I literally said that. I was like, yep. I said, well, somebody's going to die. I'm wondering if it's Anna Kendrick or the other guy. Of course, And by the way, she's really good in this movie.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Up in the Air and this movie are my favorite.
Okay, yeah. We have to talk about this. So I was very conflicted because I have not watched an Anna Kendrick movie in like however long, just because she's in them. But this was a Joe Penna movie, and I was like, oh fuck, I have to watch this, right? Because it my boy. And so I watched the film, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I think Anna Kendrick, she was not. I was expecting her to be like annoying, obnoxious. I thought like she would do some half acting, like she kind of does in those musical shits. But she was great. I have nothing but good things to say about her performance in this, and that goes for everyone. Like the four characters, I think were just great. The four actors.
The casting in general was, I think, really superb. Like, I think they just really felt like they were those characters. Yeah, 100%. I bought, like what PJ was saying, I bought them as real people. I, like, and even Michael, who had like, I think like what's extraordinary about that role and that part specific. By the way, what's the name of the actor who played Michael? It's Shamir
Anderson.
Anderson. I had never heard of him, and I don't think I've seen that many Anna Kendrick movies, and I definitely didn't know Daniel Day Kim before
He's
this.
in
So
Hawaii
like,
5-0, I think, at the moment.
oh,
Yeah,
okay,
he was
okay.
also in that episode of Voyager. He plays the alien that tries to reach Voyager in that time dilation episode
What?
where everybody worships. I'm pretty sure it was Daniel Day Kim.
Really?
Oh, very
Daniel
cool.
Day
Star
Kim
Trek.
was guest starred in Voyager. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
It was-
okay, okay.
Let me just confirm television Star Trek.
I like that he has.
Yes,
I don't know
Star
if it's
Trek
his,
Voyager. Blink of an eye.
I don't know if it's his
Oh,
stage
wow.
name or if Daniel Day Kim is his stage name or if that's his actual name. But I like that it's a play on Daniel Day Lewis, like in a weird way. Like when you start saying Daniel Day,
His
they're
real
gonna-
name
you wanna
is
say-
his real name is Kim Dae Hyun.
Oh, okay, very cool. So it is a stage name. But anyways, Shamir Anderson, right?
Yeah.
Oh my god, you're right. It is. It's the guy from. Oh my.
He's having a Voyager moment.
No, it's like for so many years I've been watching this Voyager episode. I'm like, this is one of my favorite Voyager episodes, and I'm like, this guest actor that they have, he's so cool. He's so brilliant. I'm like, why have I never seen him before in anything else, or never seen him again in anything else? And here he is. All right, okay,
Shamir,
And he also plays an astronaut in that. Oh.
yeah.
Shamir
Congrats.
Anderson, to me, had like a pretty tough role because he had to be both someone who was the antagonist, but also like
The victim.
like
I don't
like
see him as an antagonist though.
No, but he
Like,
had
there,
to,
there are no
like-
the antagonist is space.
But you make yourself the antagonist. Like I would be like, you know what? I don't know. If I was alone, I would be like, kill me. But I have like a wife and a daughter, so I can't be like.
But that's the
straight up
scene that
murder
got
me,
me.
but it's like,
that's the
oh.
scene that got me actually is the fact that he was preparing to do it. Moved me because he was like that showed me that like and he was struggling with it and it was so powerful, like he was like screaming, and you would be, I don't want to die, like if I, you know what I mean, like if I ended up being on a stowaway and I don't remember how I even got there, and like all of a sudden they're like talking about how there's not enough air, I would know myself that I'm the one who has to die. I would understand that I am the one that, these people need to fly the ship. There's like a whole bunch of reasons why they need to live. And I was just super moved by that. And again, it just plays to how real. I'm so glad this movie doesn't do any like gimmicks or like weird things, like it just was something. It was a good story. My rating's going up as we watch it and talk about it. Like actually now that I think about it.
I wasn't surprised nearly as much as you guys, I feel, or at least not you. I don't know. It's just, it felt. It's weird to say this. It felt a bit vanilla, I guess. But then I can't say it's generic, can I? Because this is nowhere close to anything that like big studios would give us. This is really its own little personal story. I do like this new sci-fi genre that we're kind of getting, dare I say, like this Ad Astra, like the stakes are different, I guess, but like this kind of very close to reality kind of science fiction that we're getting more and more. You know what I mean? Like Interstellar is not part of that because it takes it way.
I do
into,
think
like,
that Interstellar would be the studio equivalent to a film like this, and in many
I think
ways,
Ad
this,
Astra would be.
or Ad Astra. Yeah, you're right. That's a good point.
Or Gravity.
Or Gravity.
Oh, Gravity.
Yeah, Gravity.
But even so that's the one thing.
The
The other
Martian,
thing,
maybe?
and this is not a critique of the film because I believe it was the right choice. But that was the only thing missing for me, and maybe this is what you're feeling, Sean. Is like you get this satisfaction in Gravity of like she went through the craziest shit, and it's like it's like nuts stuff. But then she lands and she's on Earth at the end and she's home and she's safe. We don't actually know. They could face further the whole thing that's
They all die,
interesting.
boy.
They could no, they're gonna make they might make it.
Bullshit.
It's like they all,
It's like another solar flare.
no, they got enough oxygen for 3 people. That was the whole point of the canister, right? Like, and if they had gotten both, it would have been enough oxygen for 4. That was clear in the film. You're right. They could, but that's what I'm saying is like I like that the film kind of ended there, and that death scene was really beautiful with the solar wind, creating the ionization over the capsule and her spacesuit and everything like that, and how there's these particles that I forget what they're called, but like they actually can penetrate. Like you saw them, like occasionally a particle would come. It would like a superheated, a superheated piece of dust or something from like traveling so fast, and it would just like poke right through her, and you could see she was like slowly being just destroyed, basically eaten alive. But the last shot, like she's looking out, and I don't know if it was the last shot, and you see Mars, like a teeny little red dot.
Yeah, immediately you know it's Mars. It's so small, but you know what it is.
You know what it is, and then you also get that like return to her voiceover, which that was a little cheesy, but you get the return to her voiceover from the beginning, from when she was being interviewed, and she said like, I actually applied thinking I would get rejected, and it would be a fun story to tell that I got rejected by whatever the corporation or the agency that does it is. But then she said she got in and she thought that like this would change her life in a very profound way, and she ends up doing something really profound, which is sacrificing yourself to save the crew. So I like that a lot. There's a lot of good tied up ends.
Did you guys get a message or like a moral from this thing, or is it that there's none and that's kind of the point of it? It's just like sometimes shit happens and sometimes people have to find like solutions to it, and that's how it is, right?
It's basically good, decent people put in a no-win scenario, and the entertainment comes from the moral dilemma and how it's going to play out. And you're wondering who's going to go, or if they can find a solution somehow. You're hoping there's that little glimmer of hope at the end, where they might find one thing that fixes everything. But of course, they don't do that because they're not playing games with the story. They're trying to make it, I feel, as logical as they possibly can given the circumstances. And it's like man versus the cruelty of space. And humanity shines through at the end, like her self-sacrifice. And even I loved her little narration where she's like, I want her life has meaning, even though it didn't work out the way she wanted. But I mean, and the whole thing about will they survive? I think it was important to end at her death and not to go beyond that, because the whole point of the story was what's going to happen in this particular situation. And you can assume that they're going to get there, but like we know the mission is basically botched and it's not going to turn out the way they want. And there are supplies on Mars, we know about that, but it doesn't seem like it's going to work out too well even when they get there.
We're talking about Stowaway, the Netflix film in most countries, but the Amazon film in others. The small kind of independent release that came out a few days, maybe a week ago now.
Came out
Stowaway.
Friday.
Yeah.
By the way, the effects
Spoiler
were really,
talk, by the way.
I think
the effects were very smooth too. I felt like the although there are times you can tell things are computer generated, like for the most part it was very like smooth. I couldn't tell what was practical and CGI most of the time, so it was really cool.
There was a really great shot in the movie, and it's being used in promotional material like Anna Kendrick's on talk shows, and they use this clip. It's when they pan up the tether, and it's like a very slow pan up to show you like the distance they have to go. And I really felt that. I was like, man, that's a really great choice. And the cinematography in general is actually very good.
Yes.
And it's very difficult, as some of the actors in the movie pointed out. It's very difficult, and a lot of directors avoid this, shooting in environments that are very tight, like spaceships and capsules, like realistic ones where it's like space is very limited. To set up those shots is actually very difficult because you have to constantly like shift the set and like remove whole sections and stuff so you can get the camera in there. But what given the tight spaces, I mean, they managed to diversify the shots enough so that, for example, when you're in the plant room, you're not always seeing the same angle every time. You know what I mean? They try to change it up a bit, and like they shoot through objects a lot to give you that sense of, I guess, claustrophobia.
So that's where I really do compliment the film. So even if I'm not as sold as you guys on the plot, I think like the cinematography and the direction was absolutely brilliant. Joe Penn has been directing a whole bunch of shit, like just short 2-3 minute YouTube videos for years and years and years. But he prides himself on his channel in making like the most kind of far-fetched edits and like just different things. Like he's the kind of guy that'll film 10 different elements of a movie on 10 different like phones and then play them all together and then move the phones around so that the movie still works like as they're playing, you know what I mean? Like it's all very it's very hard to explain, but he does that kind of, he tries to synchronize his phones, and I don't know, he does like a whole lot of very interesting directing kind of like choices with his videos, and that's the entertaining part of it. So yeah, I think that all of that skill that he's learned over these years has come to good use here, and he was every shot was beautiful, even inside. You never get bored, because I feel you never get bored of the environment is what I'm trying to say. Because sometimes you feel like inside a space like ship or inside a capsule, it can just be bland, it can just be gray, it can just be white, but it never felt like that. It always felt different, varied, and I suppose the plant room was still my favorite room because of the plants. I felt it so much when they died, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the first batch that's gone, when I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, no. Oh, my goodness. I knew it wasn't going to work. I don't know why, but, like, it was just, like, when they showed it. And then the second batch dies, and you're like, ah. See, that's why they die, in my opinion. They got no plants. They got nothing. I don't know, like, what
well,
kind of
it was the
material.
algae. It was the algae that was dying. Because they were trying to use that algae produces oxygen, so they were trying to use that algae to make up for the difference or the differential, and unfortunately it failed. Like one batch lasted for a little while and then it failed. That's why they had to go to the solid booster. What was it called? The Kingfisher.
Blue says, I saw this movie and I was bored. But your conversation is making me think I'm dumb. I have to watch this again. I was tired and started falling asleep, so maybe I wasn't paying attention. Look, if this can be any indication, the first time I watched Blade Runner, I kind of fell asleep. But then I rewatched Blade Runner when I wasn't tired, and it's not an indication that the movie is bad. It's just that Blade Runner is a very ambiance kind of like vibe-driven film, and so if you're not like fully awake or really in the mindset for it, then you can't really, I suppose, it won't grab your attention as much. So maybe it's just a tired thing. It's not necessarily a comment on the quality of the film.
Blue, I'm glad you're here because on the latest episode of Drunk Space Nine, I cussed you out and I didn't mean it. I was drunk. I'm sorry.
This isn't your apology show.
I just had to put it out there.
Fair enough.
Yeah, if you release this and advertise it as a theatrically released, not blockbuster, but decently budgeted sci-fi film, people would go to it and probably have that reaction where it's like, oh, this is slow and boring. It's only about this one dilemma. And I'm glad I didn't see any advertising because I don't know how they advertise this. Sometimes movies that are slow-paced or about one particular dilemma, like this whole thing about who should go, and that's all the movie is about. You have to know that going in if you're expecting like space action, you know what I mean? If you're expecting something intense.
Watching Arrival, you know what I mean? Like
Arrival is a slightly boring movie. It's fascinating to watch though. I mean, it's a well-made, good film.
I love it.
But like this one, I can see people's perception where they're like, this is... If you're watching it when you're tired, then you can't be helped because it will put you to sleep.
I feel like this could very, very easily be condensed and reskinned as like a Star Trek episode, though.
It is a short story stretched out. That's a valid argument. If anyone were to argue that it does seem like something shorter, stretched out, like where they talk about SNL movies. Sometimes they're good, and sometimes they feel like sketches just stretched out. This feels like a something that could have been maybe 40 minutes shorter. This could have been a long short film, one of those short films that's like 60 minutes, 65 minutes. But they wanted to make it a movie, so
I think
what they
the
put in there is
Academy-
fine. I don't think, for me personally, I didn't think it was slow, and I think it was well paced for what it was. But I can understand somebody going into it not really. I didn't understand what it was, but I was like, once I realized that it was going to be this kind of movie that was going to be like completely, and it seems like one of those budget savers where it's all one place, like a bottle episode of a TV show, where it's all done in just one place, and they save any money they need for the big special effects for the last, I don't know, like 15 minutes or something.
I guarantee you that's what it was. Like they don't have truckloads of cash to throw on these things, so it's all these small films, like the independent films, they have to rely on dialogue, and they have to really make their drama good. And yeah, like you say, you got that one visual effects scene, right? Well, there's a few visual effects scenes, but you got that one final one that's going to cost you the truckload of cash, right?
One of my favorite scenes in the film is that like 5-minute scene where she's just on the phone trying to figure out stuff. She's stressed to the max. And it's like, I can see some people watching that and like, come on, okay, this scene is just going on and on. Like, okay, we get it. She's on the phone trying to figure out something. But it goes on for like a few minutes. I mean, and I'm like, I'm engaged in that kind of like thing.
I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but I was also just thinking that it might be like Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat a little bit too, where it's like, although they're like adrift. No, it's different.
Did they make fun of that in The Simpsons?
I think they did.
With Flanders and Homer in the the lifeboat.
I think so.
I've seen every episode of The Simpsons. I just don't get all the references because they reference too many things that I wasn't alive for.
That's okay. There's like enough Simpsons where now that I watch it and I don't get the references because they're so new.
Oh yeah, okay. Now, yeah, you're not a young generation. You're an old man now, so.
Old
Okay.
man, look at my life.
I have to talk about the music too because I didn't even look up like who did the music for this, but I found like the score was really good. I don't know, it matched every scene perfectly. It never took up too much space, but it helped like the vibe very well. I was pretty impressed with that. And I wasn't expecting too much out of the music. I was focusing more on like the direction, just based on my knowledge of Joe Pena. But yeah, so the music was good too. I like that.
Yeah, he's his name is Volker Bertlemann. He's a German pianist.
Okay.
And his most notable work is Hotel Mumbai, a movie called
I think it's
Emonite, that lesbian period drama with Kate Winslet and Saoirse Ronan. Have you seen my period lesbian drama with Kate Winslet? We do a little bit of scissoring in that. I'm sorry, Sean. I'm sorry.
So good. Can I say
PG-13? PG-13.
You're allowed. No. You're allowed to hijack the show with accents and and R-rated things. It's okay.
PJ, I think it's.
By the way, that is also on Amazon. I want to watch it. I mean, I heard it's good, and that's another one of those films where some people would watch and be like, "It's so dragged out and boring." In fact, SNL did a whole sketch making fun of that movie. The sketch was called a lesbian period drama or something like that, and it's like just two women who don't kiss for half the movie, just walking into rooms and looking at each other and then walking away.
I haven't watched a lot of SNL, but I feel like they're not very. I mean, I feel like SNL skits always drag on for too long anyway. So why are they making fun of movies for dragging on too long? Like the SNL skits, like I get the joke, but there's still like 2 or 3 minutes to every video. I'm like, just end it. I got the joke, and they just keep on dragging it out. Anyway.
Well, SNL is hit and miss. It's always hit and miss.
All right.
Seasons 40 to 43 or something like that were awful. So bad.
I mean, you're talking about seasons 40 to 43, so I mean, anyway. It's not a scripted show, so it's
By the way, the last Dave Chappelle hosted show was terrible. I don't know why it was so bad. He was in like 2 sketches, and all the other sketches were crap. Eddie
All right.
Murphy. Eddie Murphy. See that one?
Yeah,
that was a good one.
Speak, because now he's hijacking with this.
No. He's like, we're gonna talk about something else. Well, no, he's just delaying this, which is he knew I was gonna say the correct pronunciation of the composer's name is Volker Bertelmann.
Volker Bertelmann. Yeah.
So there. PJ was
That
just trying to
that went
prevent me from
Scottish.
saying that. Volker Bertelmann.
Get to the chopper.
Get to the chapter. SFB is so current. Thank you. I don't think I am, but thank you.
Well, Braxton says sounds super boring. Thanks
Oh,
for
no.
saving me the time. I'm watching Shadow and Bone. I think it's really good. Shadow and Bone looks like the most cringe garbage I've ever seen. Like,
What
just
is
the
that? What is
poster makes
Shadow
me
and
run
Bone?
away. Oh, who gives a fuck? It's a thing that Netflix shows you. They're like, hey, watch this. We made this. I was like, no, I don't want to watch that.
Okay.
But anyway.
I will
without
watch a
seeing.
Netflix series when they make the live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right
They were
after this
supposed to make
show,
they were supposed to make a live action Zelda too, but they never made that.
right after this show, I'll be all caught up with Invincible for Friday's
Oh, God
finale.
damn it. I still haven't watched past episode 2. I've seen 2 episodes of that.
It's show.
Yeah. What more is there to say about Stowaway? Not much. It's a smaller film. It's competent in every respect. I wasn't as surprised by it as others, but I wasn't bored to death by it, which is what people are saying apparently. And there's a whole apparently controversial racist discussion going on about this film, where there's like a whole, and I have to talk about this because it's so fucking stupid. There are so many people online apparently getting mad that this is like a movie where there's no kind of validated white people, and I'm like, what the fuck are you guys on about?
Wait,
I-
sorry.
I-
I don't know why you
I-
brought this up because it's confusing. No, I'm just kidding. Wait, so you're saying people
No.
were saying there's not enough white representation in this film?
Yes, and I
Oh,
like
okay.
it gets me kind of angry when, especially when it's not like these big studio releases where they have like armies of lawyers or whatever. This is just a guy, right? Putting together a project. He puts it out, and like if you don't like the movie, like he's reading all the comments. This dude's on YouTube. He's on Twitter. He's
I
reading all
think
the
it's a
comments.
shame
But
that
when you
I think
start
it's a-
getting like into racial things and what have you, it's like, come on.
I think it's a shame that that conversation's going on for a number of reasons, which I won't go into. But I will just say that I also think it's a shame that you even gave light to that discussion on your show. I'm sorry to say that, but I do because
You see Braxton's
probably
comment
right.
down there.
oh
See Braxton's comment.
yeah, not to be a rat, but Starfleet Boy and PJ said that Toddy has bad taste. Yes, we did say that.
Did we
Really?
actually say that?
We said something like that.
No,
but
I
think we were
no. I'll
joking.
tell you what we were talking about.
say?
We were talking about we don't know what Sean's opinions are going to be. We don't know whether he's going to like something or hate something.
I do watch Fast and Furious.
You're very hard to read in terms of like what you'll think about something. Like, I think I know what Sean will think, but probably not. Like, but
That's funny.
like Fast and Furious, I wouldn't have known you watch those movies. That's a big reveal to me.
I
I
think
would have thought you thought those movies were crap and garbage.
I think with the way that the
Well, I don't like the 8th one, but yeah.
I think 5 is really good.
I'm
5
very
and 6 are
passionate
pretty
about
good.
defending Fast 5. I think Fast 5 is not only a good Fast and Furious film, I think it's a genuinely good movie.
It is a genuinely good action movie. It is the best, I think, of all
Yes.
of them. And it take it apart. Like if you don't even like watch any of the other ones, if you
don't
just
need to.
watch that one, it works
It's
as
the
a
best
good
version.
action movie.
I
Anyway,
think
go ahead. Say what you wanted to
well,
say.
I was just gonna say I think that the film again portrays, like I just think there's enough white representation in the film. It's there, so I don't know why that argument's happening like at all. So
Yeah,
or,
I know I shouldn't have brought it up, but it was just it's a thing that I read after the fact. Like when you watch the movie, these things, I think in most of us, none of these kind of thoughts ever occur. It was just like it's 4 people in a ship. You never even think about this shit. And then you see all of these angry comments and people tweeting about it, and you're like, "What the fuck are you guys on about?" Like, I don't know. It just surprised me.
I can see some idiot online now saying, "Anna Kendrick is their white savior." At the end, I'm like, "What? or something. Somebody's gonna complain
Well,
about
and
some kind of
specifically, she's the
racial bullshit
American savior
that has
too.
nothing to do with the actual movie. And the fact is that if you look at all the characters in the movie, they could have been cast by any ethnicity. Nothing about any of their characters requires them to be any particular race
Or gender.
or gender. Actually, yeah, that's a fact. It's like they're
Actually,
just
it's
smart. It's just a movie. It's a movie full of smart people, and the cast is diverse. You have well, yeah,
Now
okay.
that
You
I-
have two white people. Somebody's gonna complain about that. Somebody's gonna complain that there are too many white people because there are two white people in the cast of four fucking people. You know what I mean? Like somebody's always gonna be keyboard fucking smashing because they didn't get laid last week or something.
No, it just hit me that they give no indication as to whether they're like, because they work for something called Hyperion.
Hyperion, yeah.
So we don't even know if this is like NASA or if this is like an American thing or if this is like a joint space program.
You get
or
the
if this
It
is
came.
so
It came
far in the
across to me
future.
as
a corporation.
it was.
Okay.
It was the movie equivalent to me of SpaceX.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't legally
Oh,
say
okay.
SpaceX.
Yes. Exactly what I
So-
think it was. Yeah.
SpaceX Sirion.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
There you go.
Yeah. Earlier I probably confused you because I said agency, but yeah, it's definitely not a government agency. It's 100%.
Wayland Corporation.
Yeah, the Wayland-Yutani Corporation.
That's the equivalent, I guess.
Which sponsors Starfleet Boy, by the way, just
Oh
FYI.
yeah, of course.
My camera keeps adjusting focus and I can't control it. It's driving me nuts. I move slightly. It's like
I just cleaned my camera to see what would happen.
Yeah, no. To finish on that, I do think maybe I shouldn't have brought it up in this discussion, but it's a discussion that's being had online, and I find it ridiculous that I find it stupid that we still have these kind of ridiculous discussions every time a movie comes out. And maybe I took it a bit even more personal this time because I don't know. It's kind of like a small project. I've been following the director for a while, and I'm just kind of gutted that he has to go through all this shit. And there's like so many racial slurs being thrown at like the cast members too, which is ridiculous. It's like
What?
these people are just doing the job, like they're very happy to be in a film.
what?
Fucking
There's
leave
no-
it
I
alone.
don't. I'm so
There's
glad
no
I don't
doubt
pay
that-
attention to any of this stuff because it seems like wow.
Yeah, there's no doubt that in the United
Nut
States
jobs
right now,
online.
in the United States right now, there's a lot of what to me is surprising racial tension. There's always the underlying system that is indeed, in fact, it's been proven, designed to elevate white people and to kind of oppress everyone else, right, and keep them down in a way. So that's the thing, but also like just things that I thought we had younger people and younger generations had moved past, like that are coming to light, are really surprising. Like one thing that I'm very conscious of is like the AAPI community, which I'm a part of, the Asian American Pacific Islander community, and there's a lot of Asian hate going around. And the last time this happened, where I experienced it personally, was during the Gulf Wars, where like a lot of people would attack me or say racial things and stuff like that. But again, I hadn't seen that in a long time, and so yeah, I think that there is a lot. I actually don't think it. I take it back that I'm sorry that I said you shouldn't have brought it up on your show. I do think it's an important issue, and it is surprising that it seeped into this film because I didn't think that, I usually am sensitive to those things and do see those things, and I definitely didn't see anything to be sensitive about. But
I
It's
like
the same
to
thing
stay
as-
away. Yeah,
it's
I
the
like
same
to
thing
stay
as
away
seeing
from
it-
these
sorry, yeah,
discussions.
go ahead.
I like to stay away from these discussions the same way, there were specific hate channels that hate on specific movie franchises or whatever, and I like to stay away from that because, as you say, it's better to not shed light on it. But sometimes it's just like, sometimes I feel like I don't know. Maybe
Remember
I felt
when
like I had
people
to
used-
address this.
Remember when people used to look at TV shows and movies and judge them based on what they were as opposed to the seedy elite underbelly that somehow is like sending subliminal messages through like SJW
See,
Bill
yeah.
Gates code. It's like I can't get over how much certain people out there just dig for this shit. Like the whole thing with new Star Trek about how there's some secret agenda where if there's a white guy on screen, he has to be incompetent, dumb, or die or something. I'm like, no, they kill men, women, aliens on that show. Like, what are you talking about? I mean,
I gotta hit the hot button.
I know, it's like, but you know what I'm saying? It's just like, I can understand like the kind of reverse of it where you get some Karens out there, I guess you call them, who say, like, I don't know if they're Karens or, you know, the people who are, oh, you're a white man, I don't want your opinion. People like that are also equally fucking stupid. We got to stop judging each other based on gender and fucking
It's
and race, and
extremists,
just say like,
isn't it?
you're another
Stop it,
person. I'm gonna listen to you. I'm gonna agree or disagree, and we can just leave it there. We don't have to bring other issues that are completely unrelated to the like Stowaway. I don't see any kind of issue with that movie in regards to like race and stuff. I think that's people just again reaching, digging for something that isn't there.
What's interesting is like I think if you were to look at like a AAA movie, like if you were to look at one of those Star Wars films or Fast and Furious film, those kind of half-baked arguments about like, oh, these companies or corporations are pushing an agenda, or they're doing this just for that reason, or they included like LGBT characters but not for the right reasons, that like I there are always these millions of discussions going on for these big movies that maybe there are all of these things going on behind the scenes, but this thing is such a small project. I feel like they went out there, they cast not only the people that they thought were good, but the people that they could. Because it might not be, you know, you got to find some, like, I don't know if they had a lot of money to pay their actors. I don't know, like, if everyone wants to start getting involved with smaller projects. I don't know. It's just like, I feel like none of any of this argument or anything could apply to this film in particular anyway. So, yeah. But anyway.
Why'd you have to bring it up, man?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I feel guilty for bringing it up.
It
apologize.
inspires a thought-provoking discussion, though, I must say. Like,
yeah.
Which is interesting because coming out of the film, I like nothing of the sort crossed my mind. You watch something like Falcon and Winter Soldier, there are, you know, very clear messages, and it addresses like racial inequalities, and it addresses these social issues that we have in society. This film doesn't do that in any way.
No.
So it's weird that discussions like this are being had. But anyway,
I don't think it's weird that those discussions are being had. I just think it's something that I'm seeing that it's becoming commonplace now. Like almost with every single work of art that comes out, there's always going to be a discussion about, you know, representation and things like that. It seems. I do feel now talking to you that like maybe I don't see the discussion enough that as I should, but you know, then again, I do also feel it's great that you're seeing it because, and I'm sorry to say this, but as the majority in this part of the world, white people should kind of get shooken up a little bit and wonder, you know, are we, you know, what's going on? Like, let's talk about this. So yeah,
in terms of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that's a show, and Marvel does it well. Anyway, I find is where they can bring up race and racism and not, as some people call, beat you over the head with it. It's naturally incorporated into the story where it makes sense. And what's the old guy, Captain America from the 50s? He was in prison for 30 years.
Oh,
I forgot the show.
Isaiah.
That's right.
Yeah,
Bradley.
and that's a show that presents things in a way where it makes sense that people are talking about it and whatnot, as opposed to something that doesn't really have any of that in it, and people are just like, we got to find something in there to bitch about her.
It's the people that were too bored watching it. They had to find something that they didn't enjoy. Like, oh, why didn't I like this?
The Illuminati messages are here somewhere.
All right, if you guys got any like closing thoughts, final thoughts about this thing?
Fun discussion. Really good movie. Solid movie. I
need to bring up the chart. So you do final thoughts and
I think
and
I would
the rating
actually.
Scale.
I think I would actually rewatch this movie and revisit it at some point, and I would definitely recommend it to people I know who are looking for something refreshing in science fiction. We keep getting like science fiction horror, you know, science fiction like, you know,
Braxton, it's being recommended.
yeah, I am recommending it. Science fiction, fantasy, things like that. So I think Stowaway is a really refreshing project, really movie, not project, it's already done, but a really refreshing movie. And hearing the behind the scenes from, because I didn't know that about the director. What is it, Joe Pena?
Joe Penna, yeah.
Joe Pena, sorry. I didn't know that about the director, and I think it is really cool that he came up. I just saw one of his credits was he did an Avicii music video or something like that. So he's an interesting guy. But for this being his sophomore attempt, I haven't seen his first
You
film
guys
that
should go
you
and
talked
watch
about.
Arctic. If you guys go
Yeah.
watch Arctic, we can do a discussion on that after. I would
Sure.
love to.
But yeah, for being his sophomore attempt, I hope it's better. I think it is, and it seems really compelling. I'll definitely be watching his career. I'll be watching his career very closely, and I can just go ahead and give my rating now too, right?
Go ahead, give it. Throw it
I
at
was
us.
gonna at the beginning of this discussion, I was gonna give it a good. Now I'm gonna give it a great.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I do think because it was teetering on it. It was like between good and great, but I'm just
Okay.
gonna give it the points. It gets the extra points, and it gets a great because I think it deserves it.
All right. Okay. What about you, PJ?
Well, a good movie to me is something that holds my interest throughout, and you know, this movie did, and it was very well executed. And I said, like the acting and the writing, and all that is great. And there is that bit of tension at the end with the climb, not knowing like what's gonna go wrong because you just know something's gonna go wrong. There's a bit of fun in that. But like I said, it's not one. It's good for a streaming movie because I honestly my expectations are low when I go and watch a film that's direct to streaming that
That's
had
got the
like either
Netflix logo on it. You're like,
just anything like that. You know, I have to set the bar low, and this impressed me enough. I wouldn't say it's great though. I would say it's good.
all right, okay.
I want to go great, but you know
You don't have
it's
to.
not something.
You're
It's
not
not
being forced.
No, but I just want to explain. Like, great is something where like I'm profoundly moved at the end, and I was a little bit moved at the end. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, that's a noble sacrifice. But it wasn't like, oh my god, that was profound. So yeah, good. It's a good.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
Blue gives it a mediocre. Hot damn. Shite.
Shit, that's way down the scale.
Yeah. So sitting here looking at my scale, this is something that happens to me quite often when I make my videos. I feel like I'm gonna give a movie something, and then it doesn't feel right. Like I initially came into this discussion thinking I was gonna give this movie an alright. But that doesn't, like, I can't. It doesn't compute in my brain correctly. I don't feel like this movie is just an alright. Maybe it's because my rating scale isn't perfect. There should be something between alright and good, maybe.
What?
But
Don't go
I've-
crazy. Don't get crazy with 12-point rating systems.
I feel like alright doesn't because as I said, even if I found maybe the plot a little simplistic in certain aspects, everything about the film was competently and well executed. So yeah, I'm gonna go with a good. I had fun watching it, and if wife wanted to sit down and watch it herself, I would definitely sit down and rewatch it with her. So that's an indication, I guess. So yeah, I'd give it a good.
Maybe you should have plus and minus on every. So it could be like an above average plus, or above average negative, or a good negative, or an all right
This is
plus.
too much.
No, it's too much.
I agree with Blue. If you put something between good and great, it should be competent.
Competent. It was a that's a good word to describe
Yeah,
this
okay.
film. It's
So
extremely
we
competent.
have the rating, and then there's like another thing just on the side, around like here.
No, it's
Competent.
like
Competent.
annotations.
It was all right. And then some movies are not competent. They're just like, it's a movie, I guess. All right, like they made a movie. That's what it is. That's kind of how I feel like about like Wonder Woman 1984. It's like they made a movie, I guess.
It
All right.
happened.
That's it. Thank you guys so much for joining me and talking about this. Thank you guys for leaving comments. Braxton, Blue, and there was someone else up there. There's people that I've never seen
There
before.
was a guy, someone called Lick Manuts or something like that, and
Yeah,
then
lick,
there's like
lick
Manuts, or something.
No,
like
come on. It's Lique Manuts.
Lique Manuts. Thank
There you go.
Yeah, Lique Manuts. And Frederick Durst. That was
Yeah.
interesting. I was like, who are those people? I've never seen them before.
Who
It
are
was
those
very interesting.
people? Anyway, Liquid Manuts is probably a joke account. I'm gonna be honest, but anyway, thank you guys for joining
If you're
us.
still listening, Liquid Minutes, tune in to Starfleet Play After Dark on Friday nights.
Your name will be quite appropriate. All right. Well, thank you guys. If you guys want to watch Arctic, I would be very pleased to sit down and talk about it with you guys. Because
If it's on a streaming service, yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. Well, I saw that one in theaters. I had to go to a special little, kind of small theater in Montreal to go and watch it, but I went and watched it. If this one had came out in like limited run theaters and it wasn't the COVID thing, I would have done the same.
Can
I
I
was like,
just say that this felt like a movie that would have worked really great in a movie theater, providing the audience was respectful.
yes,
Yeah, and
but
like
the
quiet.
like,
Yeah.
and I will finish just by saying this. You talked about confined spaces and shooting in very small environments in this film, and there were very few shots that were like outside in the open. Arctic is basically the opposite, where it's the story, and it's like the story of Mads Mikkelsen. He's trapped in he's crash landed in the Arctic, and he has to survive, and so it's just it's like wide spaces, and sometimes you get a few shots inside the hull of the plane, but that's it. All right. Thank you guys so much. We're gonna end the broadcast. Live long and prosper, I guess. And don't go to Mars unless you're really prepared.